Hello, and welcome to Dispatches from the Civil War, a podcast breaking down events of the American Civil War week by week in real time. My name is Logan, and I will be your host. This week, the events of April 19th through the 25th in 1861. Last week, President Jefferson Davis announced the Confederacy would accept applications for letters of marque. This would seem to have been done with great foresight, as at the beginning of this week, President Lincoln will order the blockade of all ports in Confederate states. This will soon be extended to Virginia and North Carolina. By ordering a blockade, it is hoped to deny the South the ability to maintain trade, deal a crippling blow to the economy, and hinder the ability to provide war material. At the current state, the U.S. Department of the Navy is not totally up to this massive task and will conscript all kinds of ships to meet the demand. A move that will make this more of a challenge takes place when Commandant Charles S. Macaulay gives orders to burn the federal Gosport Naval Yard near Norfolk, Virginia. This is done with the goal of preventing the property from falling into the hands of the Confederates. However, this will later be censured by Union officials. Speaking of headaches in the North, while traveling to Washington, the 6th Massachusetts Regiment passes through Baltimore, Maryland. This city is important as a railroad hub and as a defensive point for the capital. As the troops move through, a riot breaks out with groups carrying Confederate flags. Casualties will include 9 civilians and 4 soldiers. 17-year-old Luther Crawford Ladd, one of the soldiers killed in the riot, will be hailed as one of the first to die in the conflict. According to Kendrick Dickinson, his final words are, "All hail to the Stars and Stripes." Eventually, there will be a monument to both Ladd and Addison O. Whitney, another casualty in the riots, built in Lowell, Massachusetts. The regiment will eventually reach the Capitol and take up residence in the Senate chamber. The riot in Baltimore will cause the Federal Navy to be used to transport troops to Washington through Philadelphia and Annapolis. President Lincoln meets with the mayor in Baltimore to see what can be done to end the violence. He is concerned that since troops heading for Washington must go through Maryland, the loss of control of the area would put Washington in grave danger. Lincoln will write to Reverdy Johnson, a political leader in Maryland, saying, "I do not mean to let them invade us without striking back." President Jefferson Davis recognizes the value of Baltimore to the Southern cause when he communicates with Virginia Governor John Letcher that he hopes they are able to sustain Baltimore if practicable. The next day, Lincoln will be put somewhat at ease as the 7th New York Regiment will arrive in Washington. Since Virginia has cast in with secession, Robert E. Lee resigns his post and chooses to serve the Confederate government. Virginia is not wholly unified for the cause, however, as a meeting of anti-secessionists will take place in Monongahela County in the western part of the state. Can Richmond, over 400 some miles away, take any actions against possible pro-Union sentiments in the western part of the state? We shall see what steps are taken, if any. In regards to pro-secession actions, Arkansas Governor Henry Massey Rector will refuse to send troops to support the Union. In a case of win some, lose some, North Carolina troops will take over a federal arsenal in Fayetteville, Arkansas, while Captain James H. Stokes will travel to St. Louis and his men will remove 10,000 muskets to be put into the service of federal troops in Illinois. In other troop movements, federal troops move into Cairo, Illinois. And that finishes out the week, a dramatic expansion of not only the federal army, but the Navy as well. There will be a need for training, not to mention officers to lead and command these forces. Also, the overwhelming issue of logistics for uniforms, munitions, and food. A riot in Baltimore looks to tip Maryland to the path of secession, and with it would go the federal capital. And how will President Jefferson Davis manage the defense of his new nation? State militias are under the direct control of the governor and not the Confederate president. At the beginning of March, the Confederate Congress authorized a regular army, but at this point it exists mostly on paper. Can Davis overcome these limitations and create a unified plan? And what kind of plan will President Lincoln adopt to quash the insurrection? We will carry on to see where things go next week. Thank you for listening to Dispatches from the Civil War. Written, produced, recorded, and developed by myself with assistance provided by Rosemary and Paige, the podcasts. If you've enjoyed this or other episodes, please consider putting up a review and recommending it to your friends. Until next time, keep fit as a fiddle and toe the mark.